Okay, sports fans, I'm going to show you a little bit about formatting, specifically in Word 2003 here, but it will work in just about any word processor you have. It works the same or very similar. I'm going to show you how to format books for eBooks that you're going to upload to Amazon or Nook or a place like that. Most of the formatting guides I've seen on YouTube have not been very good. I'm going to show you how to do this a little bit better. I'm a professional formatter. I usually work in HTML. And, you know, it's still, no matter how you do this, even if you're going to go to HTML later, it's better to start off with good styles in Word to begin with. And I'm going to show you why that is. And for this right now, I've done something here. I've used block formatting. You see I got spaces between the paragraphs and things. Because this is typically what I get when people hand me a text to format. It'll be, you know, not very well done. Like something they've made for a web page. And of course we're going to put indents here and take out the spaces, and this will be a heading, and this will be well, something else, subheadings and stuff like that. Now to begin with, let's make sure that you've got Times New Roman 12 set as your default font. And if you haven't, highlight one of your paragraphs to begin with, and hit the font button here and set it to Times New Roman regular 12, and then come down here and hit default, and that will set your normal paragraphs styles, which is not really a style at all. It will set it to Times New Roman, so everything you do in the future will be Times New Roman, and that's what you want for an ebook. I realize if you're writing print books too, if you're sending them to publishers, they usually want it in courier, but if you're going to publish your own ebook, then you know Times New Roman 12 is the way to go. So set it up like that, and that's what you want for all your body text, all your paragraphs. And it might be easier for some people, even with the headings and things, to just do everything in Times New Roman 12, and then come back and format it after you've written it. Okay, that's kind of what we're doing here. Even though I've just got a couple chapters here, we're going to split them up and make more chapters just to show you how to do it. Okay, first thing we want to do then, if you got everything in Times New Roman 12, right now we're seeing the normal view. Let's go to print layout. That's a lot easier to work with, and you can boost the text size a little bit. I got up to 120 here. And then the very next thing we're going to do is bring out the formatting palette, because this is primarily what we're going to be teaching here, is how to use styles. So here's your formatting palette. You can see we don't have anything here right now because we don't have any styles really. We've got everything's in normal. Now you see the italic. Here's a word that's in italicized. You see how it lit up there when I clicked on it. That's creating what they call a span in CSS, cascading style sheets. And it makes a span inside of that paragraph around this word to create a italicized style for it. Anyway, in clear formatting, let's say I want to get rid of this italics. I can just highlight the word. And you know, sometimes you get a little bit of italic in the space before and after a word as well. So it's best to highlight, you know, the words before and after it also. And hit clear formatting, and it's gone. So it's as easy as that to clear formatting. I'm going to bring it back now because I want that italicized. On this whole paragraph here, we don't have any boldings or italics or anything at all. If I had some kind of problem with the paragraph and the ones before it here, I could just highlight them all and hit clear formatting, and it's all gone. Whatever any kind of formatting I had at all will be gone. Sometimes people have a hard time getting rid of certain styles in the text, and learn to use this clear formatting to get rid of unwanted styles in a piece of text or the whole text. Anyway, here we're at square one. Normal is basically the same as saying there's no style. Okay, normal, we know normal is 12 point, times 12 point. And if we look on here, I'm going to show you right here, we're going to go to the modify button to modify the style. We're not going to modify it, I'm just going to show it to you. You see it's left aligned, Times New Roman 12, its name is normal. There's no bolding or italics or anything. It's just a real plain Jane style. And we click on paragraph here. Hopefully yours will be like this too. Everything's 0. That's what it should be for normal. And left aligned. And shouldn't be anything here at all, so maybe Whittle and Orphan Control, which doesn't matter in an ebook. It'll just ignore that. Okay, so that's normal for you. And also you could format the font a little further here. For instance, superscript or subscript, you can use that in an ebook, either of those. Most of the rest of the stuff you cannot use. Small caps, you can use small caps. And probably some, most of these things you wouldn't use anyway. Okay. I mean, you might get away with strike-throughs, for instance, and some e-readers might know what to do with that, but a lot of them wouldn't. So you want to keep things pretty basic most of the time. Okay, if you look down here in the bottom right, at least, with my version of Word, you've got to have it. And if you've got a newer version of Word, you still have to be able to go through the style palette and find all these things. I'm sure they're there. Here it shows you I can choose from styles and use, which is what we're looking at now. I can go down and hit all styles, and this shows you all the styles that come with Word automatically. And instead of making a new style, you can just use some of them that are here and modify them. But we're going to do a little bit of both. For instance, this right here is the title of the book, so let's give it heading 1. Just click on heading 1, and now if I go back to styles and use, you see heading 1 is listed there because we're using it. Now we can modify this, and we're going to by hitting the modify button again. And the only thing we can really modify, and that you really need to modify, is hit the font and paragraph, and that's it. Forget the rest of the stuff. We're not going to use tabs or borders or any of this stuff. None of this really has anything to do with an ebook. Just font and paragraph. And most of the font stuff is actually right here. In this case, though, if I look at font, because this is a heading, look at character spacing. See, it's got kerning for fonts turned on. Turn that off. That's, again, most ebooks wouldn't know what to do with it. It'll just create problems. Make sure there's no text effects. Just make sure it's none. Scale 100%. Everything else is normal. Kerning off. Okay? And that's the way it'll be most of the time when you click on a style. It won't have those things. But headings usually have kerning. So we'll take them out, though. And see, this is set for Arial. Again, we want to have Times New Roman in our books. So we'll go down here and find Times. And there it is. And we'll change this. We'll make it bigger, say 20 points. And keep it bold because it's a heading, so we want it bold. Okay, no, that's okay. Now we're going to modify the paragraph. And for the paragraph, you see it's left aligned now. Let's make it centered. This stuff you can keep all the same. Usually you won't, these would be the only two boxes that are checkmarked usually. And most of the time with most styles, it's just the widows and orphans, and that will get ignored in ebooks anyway. So you can just leave that alone. Now with indents and spacing, you'll see we've got spacing before and after. This shows the amount of space before and after the paragraph. Now most of our paragraphs are going to be in 12 point. So if we want exactly one line of space between paragraphs, we want 12 points of space. That's basically the same as the line height of one line of text. And in HTML, that will be interpreted as 1 EM. So now here we've got one space before and after. Usually, unfortunately, if you're trying to upload books, Word files to Amazon, for instance, it won't honor any spacing before the heading. It will usually the first one, the title page. But if you want to do headings for chapters, it won't give you any space before a chapter, no matter how much you put in here, because they have to be split into separate HTML pages, or the spaces just won't work. While you can create a page break before each chapter heading, that still won't get you a top margin for that for the heading. It just won't work unless you have separate HTML pages. And a page break isn't the same thing as creating separate HTML pages. And that's just the way it is. That's why there's a lot of advantages to working in HTML. But anyway, for the heading here, we're going to go ahead and give it some space. We'll give it 36 points. That's the equivalent of 3 spaces, okay? And we're going to give it 24 points, that's 2 spaces after. So try to remember that 12 points is 1 space. All right. Line spacing single always. Always keep that single. And no indents or anything because it's it's a centered heading. You don't want indents on the centered paragraph. But anyway, we're done with that now. Hit OK and look how it's changed for us. It's as simple as that. Before we go any further, let's come down to the first 2 paragraphs here in our book. In the first paragraph, you usually don't want an indent. In fact, you usually want that first letter to be a drop cap, especially in a novel. But you can't really do that with ebooks. Drop caps work in some of them, but not in others, and sometimes the spacing will be all crazy, and there's no control over that because there's no industry standards in ebooks at all, none whatsoever. So stuff like line spacing and whatnot will be different in all of them. So it's best just not to use drop caps. What we usually do is use a raised bold letter instead, and I'll show you how to do that later. And also you can highlight the first few words and use, bring up font and hit small caps. Sometimes people use that instead. I like the raised bold letter myself, but so anyway, the first thing we're going to do is hit this first paragraph. We're going to call it body text. See, we've got all the styles listed now. Come down here and find body text. It should be in Word. If it's not, well, you can make one later, and I'll show you how. But click on that. So now this paragraph has body text for its style. You don't have to highlight the whole paragraph. Just put your cursor anywhere in it and click on it over here. Okay. Second one, click on body text first, indent. Because this is a novel, and we want indented paragraphs with no spaces between them. And we'll take them out in a minute. Okay, so now we got this one is body text, and this one is body text first indent. Come back to our formatting and use, and we won't be going back to the all styles anymore from now on. This is mostly, most of your paragraphs are going to be body text for the first paragraph, and then in every chapter is going to be like that, and then all the other paragraphs after it will be body text first indent for the most part until we get to a new chapter. So now that we have them, let's style them. Body text, we'll come down and hit modify. First we'll look at our font. It's 12-point New Roman. That's what we want for the paragraphs. No bold or italics or underlines or any of that stuff. It's left align, but we want to have it justified. For the body paragraphs, they should be justified. Then come down and click on paragraph. We'll do some more. The default in Word, for some reason, at least with my version of Word, it was 6 points after for the paragraphs. With eBooks, everything, all your spacing should be 12 points or based on 12 points. If you want 2 lines, then you use 24 points. If you want 3 lines, you use 36 points, and so on. It should be multiples of 12 for each line of space you want before or after a paragraph. Now, we don't want any spaces before or after our regular paragraphs in a novel. We just want we want the spaces closed up and for the paragraphs to be indented. But for this first one, it's not going to be indented. And we'll close up the spaces, which I just did. Everything is 0. And this is for like the first line indent. I'll show you how to do that with the body text first indent. But for this one, for just the body text, we don't want any indents. Line spacing will always be single in eBooks, okay? Never changes. It should always be single for every single style that you create or use. It should be single line spacing. And again, widow and orphan, you can leave that checked, and the rest of this should be unchecked. Okay, so that's the paragraph. And the font, we'll just make sure there's nothing else checked here, and there's not. It's just Times New Roman regular 12, and that's what we want. There's no kerning, no text effects, and we're set. Hit OK. So now, every time you apply this style to the first chapter before a paragraph, this is what you'll have. Will be a paragraph with no indents and no spaces after it. Say we had spaces before because we had spaces between all the paragraphs because I had created a block paragraphs like you do for a web page. So we have to take out all the spaces, and we'll do that afterwards though. Now we'll come down and format the body text first indent. Times New Roman 12. It's already on Justify for this one. Just look at the paragraph. No spacings afterwards. First line, that's not nearly enough. Should be about a 3 is good in Word usually. Everything's fine there. Single, no spaces, just what we want. First line, that's just, if you look down here now, you can see the first line of the paragraph is indented, and that's exactly what you want in a book, in a novel. Okay. Our font is probably fine. We're going to look at those to make sure regular, Times New Roman, 12, nothing else checked. Kerning, nothing there. None there, so we're fine. Hit close, hit OK, and so now it's done. Now all we have to do for all these paragraphs, this is a continuation of this paragraph, so it's already styled. These two need to be styled. You can just highlight the whole thing if you want. Come over here, hit first indent, body text first indent, and it's done. Now we can take out the spaces between them. Okay. So this is the majority of your book is going to be body text and body text first indent. Okay, you can come on down here and do the same thing. We'll click on all these and hit body text first indent. Take out the spaces. See, this one's still normal. Body text first indent. I was going to do on down here, yeah, go all the way down to the end of the chapter. That's a prologue, actually. Body text first indent for all those. And we'll take all of our spaces as we're going along. But you can see where if you had started off writing your novel in styles to begin with, if your very first paragraph was body text, the second was body text first, and then every time you hit the enter button after that, it would keep the style that you had. So you wouldn't have to go over here and do what I'm doing now. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, that's the end of those. Well, let's say you want this is the end of your first paragraph. You want to make a second one. You just hit enter, and it's already set for body text, first indent. So, and every paragraph after that, until you go to change it, it's going to be body text first indent. You click on here and look over here. It shows you what you're, what you've got for a style for this paragraph. So, like I say, if you start off your book to begin with the right styles, you don't have to go through and take out all this stuff like I'm doing now. Okay. Now we got all the spaces out from the first chapter and from the beginning of the book. Remember with the heading here, we purposely put in a couple of spaces after it and a couple of spaces before it. So those are formatted spaces, so you won't be able to click on them with your cursor. All right, next thing we probably ought to do is we're going to make some styles. Let's make a centering style. And you can click right here in New Styles. And we're going to leave this formatting palette up that has all the styles shown, because remember, they won't show in our Styles in Use palette until we've actually applied them to something. And a new style hasn't been applied to anything yet. So click on New Style. And we're going to base this here. It says styles based on, and it's a paragraph style. All the styles we're going to be making are paragraph styles except for one. And there's going to be a character style I'll show you later. You'll never make a table or a list style, but character, yeah, you are going to make one. But anyway, this one is a regular paragraph style. It's going to be based on body text. This will save us a lot of work. If we base it on, here is body text, not block text. Then it'll be, it'll have the same style as body text except for what we change. So we know all we want to do is center it. We don't want any paragraphs before or after, anything like that. But anyway, let's call this body text SEN. The SEN will stand for centered. Learn to use abbreviations. It makes things, a little easier. So I'll hit the centering button here. And that should be all we have to do. Everything else is set up. Hit OK. So here's our style. We're going to apply it to this one right here. This paragraph says by Chuck Smith. And there it is. It's centered. No spaces before. No spaces after. But sometimes we're going to want a space. So let's make another style. This one based on body text center, which has already come up for us. And we're going to call this body text. Whoops, I accidentally hit the count button. Text SEN 1B. And the 1B will stand for one space below the paragraph. Okay, if you want to make a space above, we call it 1A. If you want to make two spaces, 2A or 2B, and so on. Many spaces as you want. And for this, we're going to have to modify the paragraph to give it a space after. Remember, 12 points is one space. So that's all we got to do. So now we see body text center, body text centered 1B. Yeah, just for the heck of it, we'll put it like that. But of course, this is a preface. We want to have a big heading for that. I'm just showing you how to do this. Typically for the preface, though, I want to come down and use our heading. Of course, you probably have a lot of other things in your copyright page and all that stuff. I'm just kind of showing you the basics of how to format, how to make styles. Okay, so all these are styled correctly. We get down to, well, here, let's give us, this is body text first indent. Let's give one, let's make a new style here. Body text first indent 1B. Because every once in a while you want a space after a paragraph or something. This will be based on body text first indent, so all we got to do is change the paragraph style to give it 12 points after. Okay. So here it is, body text first indent 1B. We're going to apply that to the one before where it says Chuck Smith here. So now we've got to automatically have a body style here that gives you a space after the first indent. And for this one, we'll also hit body text first indent 1B. Close that space up. And here we're going to make an ad hoc style just by highlighting that and clicking on the bold button up here. You see it made a style for it. It just added plus bold. And that's okay. If you look at formats in use, you'll find it there. Now for prologue, we want to hit heading 1 again. Take out that space that was after it. And after, for the prologue, we want to have a paragraph that starts with no indent, so it'll just be body text. And the ones after it will be body text first indent, which we already have. Now here's an asterisk. Let's make a style for that. This is to signify a section break. And an easy way to do that is we'll make a style called section break. And we'll base it on body text centered. Okay, but we're going to make it 14 point because asterisks are kind of small, and we're going to make them bold too, just for the same reason. And the paragraph, we're going to give it a space before and a space after. And we have to go back to the all styles to find it though. Here it is, section break. We're going to apply that to these asterisks here. So now they're just, the way a section break should be. Space before and a space after, centered, and 12 or be 14 point bold. So we're clicking right along. We're going to apply the same one here. See, that's the thing. After you've got all your style set, you can save this as your book as a template for future books. And all your styles will already be there. All you got to do is click on, well, here's, I want to have the asterisk thing here for that section break. Click on section break, and it's done. See how simple that is? And here's another one. Okay. We'll give this heading 1. This will be body text. Take out the space. Again, take out the space. Make these first indent. Take out the space. Where'd it go? There it is. All these will make first indent. Take out the spaces. Hit the back button to take out spaces. Yeah, hit section break on that one. Again, we go back to body text first indent. Highlight them all. Take out spaces. See how easy this is? And if you had written it to begin with without spaces, it'd be that much easier. Well, it's a piece of cake once you've got your styles made, and they'll always be there now. So anyway, I'm not going to do the rest of these, I don't think. Well, I think I've probably shown you enough of what to do. Well, heck, let's go ahead and finish these. Just highlight them all. First indents. I didn't realize I was that close to the bottom of the page. So that's it. We're done. This is all I've got here. I'm going to click this off just so it's out of the way now. And probably should have shown you on the page setup before. For the most part, you don't want headers and footers in ebooks, okay? They don't work. There's really no such thing. It doesn't really matter what the paper size is. There's, we want, the main thing is we don't want any margins to speak of, but you can leave these alone, and they'll get taken out. And you can take all those. I know that looks silly, but with no margins at all. But ebooks come with their own. Each e-reader has its own margins, so you really don't want to specify any margin. So you make that the last thing you do, because you don't have to look at it. Do that just before you upload the book. Take the margins out. Something I neglected to say earlier with the, if you're uploading a Word file to Amazon, there is a problem with trying to get no indents with certain e-readers, especially the older Kindles. They always want to show an indent, even if you don't specify one, or if you specify 0. It has to be, what you have to do is specify a really small indent. So let's go back and modify body text, and I'll show you. And we want to modify the paragraph. Instead of specifying none, give it a first line indent and make it for 0.01. And it's basically, it makes it an indent so small that it can't be seen. So it's like having no indent. And this way, in the older readers, the first 2 generations of Kindles, and the DX model, which is still being sold, you won't have an indent there. For some reason, it's just a glitch in the software where they like to show an indent unless you do this. So, of course, if you go on HTML, it works fine in HTML. You just specify no indent. But this is just for you guys uploading Word files. Make sure you put 0.01 in there for first line on the paragraphs that you don't want indented. And see, you look here, it doesn't look like there's any indent at all. It's so small it can't be seen. I also said I'd show you how to make a character style. For the first paragraph in any chapters anyway, sometimes for sections like prefaces too, you can do it. A lot of books use drop caps, and like I said, you can't really use those in ebooks. At least a lot of the readers won't read them right. What they will read is just a large, bold first letter. And you could do that just by coming up here and clicking 18 point. It's about as big as you want to go, and making it bold. And you have to go through and do that for each one, you know. But you could also use a character style. And here, let me undo that. And to make a character style, hit New Style. We'll call it Big First Letter. And here it says Type Style, hit Character. We want to stick with times. And say 18 point and bold, and we're done. So here's a big first letter. All you have to do is highlight the first letter, click it, and there it is. Instead of clicking 3 things up here, you just got to click 1 now. Some programs have a way of doing this automatically, like Judo has a way of coming through and hitting all the chapters with the making the first letter and the punctuation also large like this. But at any rate, you know how to do it with a style now. So that's a character style. Okay, I've got LibreOffice up now with the book in it. LibreOffice Writer is a free program. It's the same as OpenOffice Writer. It's equivalent of Word in a lot of ways, in most ways, all the important ways. And a lot of people use it to write in because it's free. To get to the formatting palette here, hit Formatting, then Styles and Formatting, and you see the palette here is a floating one. You can put it wherever you want. You can resize it or do whatever you want with it. And right now we have applied styles showing. It shows all the styles that are in the book. Hit all styles and it shows you all the styles that come with OpenOffice Writer. So again, it's a lot like working in Word. Its style palette is a little different. For instance, heading here, we'll click on heading. It's highlighted here. Let's say we want to modify it. You right click on it to modify it. And instead of having a separate menu for the paragraph and the font, here it's all in one big menu with tabs. And the font, let's say we want to change it to 22 point. Alignment, be centered, indents, and this gives you the spaces before and after. And we'll just leave them all the same. First line should be none. I don't know why there's anything listed there. So we didn't have anything listed in Word. Should all be 0. Okay, here's our spacing above and below the paragraph. Apply. Let's see, it just made it a little bigger. So that's how you change a style. To make a style, you click up here and hit New Style. And well, you know how to do that. I'm not going to show you all that again. And you'll see once in a while you'll make a style and it will actually accidentally get applied to other paragraphs, and you have to go in and take them out. That's just a quirk of this program. But anyhow, that's how you do it. And I just wanted to show you a little bit. Once you know how to do formatting styles in one program, you can do it in just about any. If you use an ebook creation program like Scrivener or Judo, same thing. They've got formatting palettes, and it helps if you take and learn to name your styles the same in your manuscript as what it would be when you go to one of those programs. Like this we call first indent, or this one we call body text, and this here we call body text first indent. And it'd be nice if you keep the names of your styles the same both in HTML and in your Word documents, and that'll help you in the long run, make things a lot easier. So anyway, I hope that shows you what you need. And what you can do, we could have done this in Word too, is just, highlight the whole, well, here, just hit select all, hit delete, and now we've got nothing on the page. We'll call this, let's see, call it, novel template. And we'll save it with that file extension. Save as novel template in a Word doc. And we'll save it to my desktop here. Now, I did this out of LibreWriter. You could have done it out of Word too, the same thing. And that way, it'll be on your desktop waiting for you. Next time you want to have a new book, you just, here, we'll close this. Now we'll open from our desktop, look for novel template, open it. And when we click on formatting and styles, it'll have all the styles that we use, that we create. So here we created body text centered with one space below, first indent with one space below. Remember section break. There it is, section break. And in most programs, you have a way of saving just the styles too. So from your styles palette, which is nice. But it's really easy just to save a Word document and use it over and over. Just make a novel template, and it'll be there waiting for you every time you want to write a book. All you have to do is click on the styles. You won't have to make any more, or not very often. Anyway, I hope that taught you something, and hope you write some good books.